All right, I am making some progress on the front end. I got the motor taken out this morning, give me better access to everything I got going on here. And so I got these little weld tabs that hold brake lines, probably designed more for hard lines. Really, you can use them for just about anything, but you just put a little zip tie through there and welded 2 on each control arm for the brake soft line so that it holds it in the correct orientation throughout the steering angle and the suspension travel. I'll probably go and add a little P-clamp right here just to finish off the whole soft line install. But real happy with these guys. They're super cheap. I think a package of 10 of them's like $8 or something like that, so not too bad. Good solution. And then I got the steering shaft made here, so I had to section out the motor mount here, and so I used a hole saw to hole saw through this, and then just had to adjust it a little bit and then welded in a piece of thick wall tubing. And so you can see the rack or the shaft goes real neatly through there. There is about 3/16 of an inch of clearance on the bottom, and then a little more on the back side. And I got it TIG welded into the steering U-joints there. Now it looks like a lot of material's been taken out of this, but this is a really thick wall tubing right here, and the tube that I welded back in is also real thick wall, so I'm not worried about this flexing or breaking or anything like that. That's going to be plenty fine. And one tip when you're doing a steering shaft like this is you have to have the U-joints orientated right. So you can see here, this guy right here, this U is oriented the same as this U. That's called being in phase. If these were not in a line with each other, if they're 90 degrees off or anywhere in between, you can get a little bit of binding as the shaft is going throughout its length of travel. So this is just like building a drive shaft where you want the U-joints to be in phase. So really happy with how this turned out. It's real nice and simple looking. Didn't require a rod end or heim joint for support. This thing is super solid. It ain't going anywhere. And now it feels pretty good to be able to turn the front end from the steering wheel here. So the last part of the steering system that I need to address is the bearing in the top here. The original bearing is just in there right now, but it's missing about half of the ball bearing. So I'm either going to rebuild that if I can. Otherwise, like I've shown you in previous videos, I have a flange bearing that I can mount up in here. But I've decided that if I can make the original bearing work, I'm going to try to do that, just because of the way it fits up is obviously like it originally would have fit up. And so now that I have those couple of things done, I'm going to take the steering shaft and the steering column back out of the car. I'm going to take the dash out of the car, and then I'm going to get to work on hanging the clutch pedal. I just have a universal Willwood clutch pedal that people put in their race cars and stuff like that. And it's got 2 bolts on the bottom of it. So I'll build a bracket off of the brake pedal bracket to capture the clutch pedal, and then I'll probably brace it over here to the side, probably to where the e-brake, the emergency brake, mounts to. And the clutch pedal, the arm itself is going to have to be modified. It's not long enough, because if I have it the same height as the brake pedal here, then the master cylinder hangs out a little bit kind of on center with the dash, like right here. So you could see it below the dash, I guess, and I don't want that. So I'm going to make the leg of the clutch pedal longer, and luckily it's just well, it'd be nice if it was a steel leg, but it's aluminum, but that's fine. I'll be able to do that. So I want to get that done, and then I can run the fittings from the firewall, make a hard line up to the clutch master cylinder, and then all of the hard line brake plumbing will be done for the whole car. I should say the hydraulic hard line. Obviously a clutch isn't a brake, but you know what I'm saying.
Shit, I ain't never even, you know what I mean?
Then to finish all this stuff off, I'm gonna have to mount the pads on the pedals. I have the throttle pedal here. That kit came with a brake pad and a clutch pad, which is one of the reasons why I bought it. So all of the pedals will match, which will be nice.
Sparkling up the brake lane.
And they just came basically with a threaded rod on the back of it and a nut. So I'll just have to make a bracket and weld the nut to place the pad where I want it. This pedal, the brake pedal, needs to be modified still. I'm going to bring it further forward by about a ½ inch to increase the throw so that it doesn't have to go all the way to the floor, presumably, for the brakes to engage. And plus there'll be some more adjustment available. The hard part now is going to be getting the throttle pedal to work. I also this morning welded in this right here, which is where the throttle cable will pass through. I was really hoping it would pass through like around here where it's kind of flat, and I could just drill that 3/8 inch hole and then just have it go right through. But the engine, I shoved it so far back that there isn't a lot of room between the carb shift linkage and the firewall. So it's basically just a real direct shot right from here to the linkage. Luckily, these engine mounts are pretty solid, and I think there's just enough for that wiggle of the engine and any movement of the body that it should be fine. But there wasn't many options for the throttle cable.
I'm not saying I didn't do nothing wrong, but now I'm doing it right.
So this was a solution I came up with. I just took a piece of tube, welded a cap on the end, drilled a hole in it, kind of radiused it a little bit, and then went and TIG welded it right there. And then on the back side, I need to cut the rest of the tube off here, and I'll just make it flush with the firewall and blend that in. But you can see that the lever of the brake pedal is not in line at all with the cable, and if it was closer I could just throw a 45-degree bend and a 45-degree bend, but this is pretty far off. And so what I think I might have to do is widen this whole assembly so that this is in line over here, and make another pivot point over here so that a rod comes over, gets picked up by a mount, and then this part of the linkage is right in line. So when the pedal actuates, it's actuating on the same plane, because if I make a new one of these and just come out at an angle and then up, as it is pulling the carb linkage back, it's going to be trying to twist in this direction, and these Delrin bushings over time I think will get oblonged and wear out, and the pedal already has quite a bit of play in it. This is a pretty cheap throttle pedal, It was a lot cheaper than like the low car and other brands, but the quality, I don't know, is going to be that much better. So I was going to shim this to make this a little bit better. Plus, this is splined right here, so I'm pretty sure I could cinch these together and then hit the set screw and take some of that wobble out of it. But either way, this is just too much of a discrepancy right there. So I'm going to have to get tricky with that throttle linkage, where I thought the throttle pedal would be done by now with the cable and everything. So just one extra step, but want to get going on this stuff. And then after I get all this under dash stuff finished, I'm going to get back on the rear seat. I got some hog ring pliers and some hog rings. And so the next step is going to be grabbing the seat backs and stripping all of the upholstery off of those like I did with this, and figuring out how to build a pivot back in so at least the passenger seat back will tilt forward enough to get access to the back seat. I may end up mounting the driver's side rigid depending on how hard it is to make that pivot work back there. So that's what's on the horizon. I'll check back in with you guys when I get a little more progress made. Peace!
You ain't robbing, you don't know nothing about that.